right, and here we go. The Transformers War for Cybertron Siege Voyagers showed up today from TF Source. Thank you very much, guys. And here is Megatron, and he is, as you can see, I don't even know if I want to call it a Cybertronian tank. He's very tanky. He does have some Cybertronian-esque elements, I guess. Certainly not an Earth tank, but plenty of neat things. Now, he's pretty sizable. These are a little smaller Voyagers than... well, not so much, but then what we got back in the, during the Classics era. But he's a fun little gray and black tank. He is not quite the beef tank, but all in all, not a bad little Voyager tank here. And just since I brought him out, I'll give you a quick look at there he is with the Cyberverse Megatron, who's just still a fun beef tank. Anyway, we'll set him off to the side right now. We don't really need him. So here he is. He does have a rotating turret, which is nice. And he's got some little wheels under here. And other than that, not a whole lot to tank mode. He's got plenty of ports all over to plug weapons in. And we'll get more into the weapon interaction when we get some more weaponizers and smaller figures and all this stuff. There's also several points, little pegs at various places. Look like there's one down here on his leg, one over here on this leg for more... for smaller figures to attach. So they look a little big to put like a Titan Master on. But, actually, you know what? I have them out. Let's see. Yeah, they're a little too big for Titan Masters, so maybe more Weapon Masters and such can go on there. But there's definitely ports for like the Micro Masters and guys to ride if they're not just in weapon mode. Quick turn around to the tank there. And on the underside, his head does turn side to side, but it can't turn all the way around. So you can either leave it straight up in its robot mode position, or it can kind of hide down here in the body. Although I wish they'd almost just left it straight because of the problems this little divot bit creates in robot mode. But you can kind of hide his face as if he's maybe slightly ashamed underneath there. That being said, there's some neat bits to his transformation. Just real quick, since we're doing it here, we'll do a robot mode comparison in Optimus's video. He's got his gun attached. You don't have to have that up there. Megatron integrates his weapons that come with him better into his vehicle mode. Prime just carries his back here and up here on the top. But there's them in vehicle mode. And in Optimus's video, we'll show them side by side with the robots. But yeah, so to transform, and one of the first things you'll see right off the bat is the front half of his cannon unplugs. And it's what becomes his sword. Now somebody, I thought it was Bolt Matrix, but I couldn't find it. These are in little, just kind of mushroom pegged, not mushroom pegged, but you know what I'm talking about, that kind of joint that kind of slots into here. You can pop these out, like about halfway through you can slide them out. You can remove these blades individually. And somebody said they store under his arms somehow. I haven't figured that out, and I haven't wanted to start putting potential stress on this little peg here. But apparently it's possible, and if I find it on Twitter, I will retweet it. But you slide this out. There's actually, like, you can see there's actually a slot there between his cannons, so it fits in there, which is really nicely done. And but if you want to pop these off, you can have them hold this as a cannon in robot mode. I guess you could just use it like that. And use this peg here if you wanted to use it as an arm cannon with the back blades. These kind of rotate here, I think mostly because there's a little tab here to hold it in place in sword mode that fits into these slots, and it just makes it a little easier to get them around without having to squeeze it past this point. But you just rotate them up, or you could, if you wanted, you'd rotate them and have them some sort of cannon trident he could hold in his hand. But flip that up and around, and then, like I said, rotate it in, and that will let you... put that tab into that slot right there. Close it up, and he's got a kind of replica of his old G1 sword, which is cool. And again, it's got a port here and a port here, so you can either have him hold it like a sword or attach it to his arm if you wish. And everything else, pretty much, you can take his cannon off in robot mode, obviously. You can reconfigure the weapons, but everything else pretty much stays together here during transformation. Now, one of the first things that's really cool, the way his legs transform is actually pretty neat. So you come back here, go ahead and straighten his feet up. You can do the feet at any time, but I'm going to go ahead and do them first because they're like the last step of the instructions. So pop those up and around. And then right here, bend these out a little bit. There's a tab in here you got to get loose where it tabs into the waist to hold it solidly. This panel opens up, and you can see how his legs folded up in there. You got to bring it up and around, and then out, and then down, and then this panel closes back up to fill in the leg. Same over here. Untab it, open this up, and then swing it around, out, and down, close that up, and there's his legs done. Rotate him around at the waist here. Coming together nicely. Then up here, untab this panel from the two tread pieces, so that'll straighten up. Hook these up so they come, these little tabs here, so they come out and around. Unpeg his arms. Again, the cannon can go onto either arm, but this is the one it's going to end up on. So get those out of the way a little bit. Bring this whole panel up. It should flip down and around here. And once you start flipping it over, you can then fold these panels in here like this, which will form his backpack. Fold his arms all the way around and tab them in. Bring this, make sure this comes all the way back down here, because there's two little tabs here that fit into these slots on his backpack. So you want to make sure that comes down far enough, otherwise the backpack won't sit flat against his back. Flip out his fists. These have already moved a little bit. We'll flip out his fists, rotate his cannon back around forward, and then these little pieces up here on his shoulders fold down to make it look like he has his classic little trigger arms. Then you can give him his gun, or his sword gun, and there's Megatron in robot mode. Now, when I was talking about the divot, the way his head hides, if they just left it straight, and maybe there's something else that moves in all of this that I'm missing. It looks like this piece may actually come up, so maybe this divot's important. But there were a lot of pictures that made him look like he had no neck, and that's because this panel that allows it to fold down to kind of hide in tank mode, there's no way to really lock it in. It would be nice if there were maybe a couple little tabs here that kind of clicked into place in this position to hold his head up. And while it doesn't sink on its own, it doesn't take a lot of pressure for his head to start sinking down into his body. It wasn't all this far down in the package, but it was sitting a little lower in the package and made him look a little stumpy. But if you get it in the right position where it's level, he actually has a pretty decent head sculpt. The head sculpt itself is nice. It can move about this far in either direction, despite the fact that it's on a ball joint, but there's the way his helmet's sculpted and the way the piece that supports the ball joint is sculpted inside there, he can only turn so far. Otherwise, you'd be able to turn his head all the way around and it wouldn't be super visible in tank mode. His hands, you can see they stay, even when they're fold all the way out, they kind of have a slight angle to them that's not adjustable. There's no wrist swivel. But aside from that, there's actually a pretty decent amount of posability. You've got the neck, you've got the ratcheting arms, well, not ratcheting, but swiveling arms here in both directions. You got a bicep swivel, an elbow joint. Again, no wrist swivel. It does have a waist swivel. Ratchets in both directions, thigh swivel, 90-degree knees. The toe articulation, the ankles can move a little bit, the toes can move a little bit, and he does have, it clicks out of place. They lock into place for tank mode, and this one can be kind of this side makes kind of a pain to lock back into place, but he does have ankle tilts here at the feet for a more natural stance. Now you saw I pulled that little Titan Master out because I had him over here for a quick size comparison, just to give you an idea how big he is. I don't have my old Classics Nerf gun Megatron, but I do have Titan's Return Megatron. As you can see, he's a little smaller, but overall, he's a much nicer looking Megatron figure. I still like the Classics one. I've got the repo label, or the Titan's Return one. I have the repo label set on it. I modified his cannon to look a little better and plug in a different part so it looks more like his actual fusion cannon. But just proportionally, the new one's a lot nicer. Even if he's a little less massive, but not by much, than his Titan's Return counterpart. Packaging real quick. They've got new, I'm not going to dwell on it, but they've got this new angled packaging, And it's a little smaller, certainly volume-wise, it's smaller than the previous Voyagers, because Voyagers come 2 to a case, and with Optimus Prime's package with that angle, they kind of just mesh together like that. And it makes for a very small Voyager case. Like, the box that these arrived in was about the size of a standard Voyager case, and I'm like, did they put the Voyager case in a separate box? That's got to be tight. And it turns out the actual new Voyager cases are just these thin little boxes. And I'm not going to show it off too much, but yeah, just something interesting. Like the way they ship is actually pretty space saving, at least compared to the previous waves. So yeah, I'm very happy with them. And once we get some Weapon Masters and Micro Masters and all these guys in, we'll start swapping out some weapons and really showing off what they can do. There's some neat pictures on the box of him with the combined cannon up on his shoulder, if you want to evoke the G2 Megatron. But all in all, he's a pretty solid Megatron. The weathering paint, honestly, it looks way worse under like bright photography lights than it does just in a natural room lighting. I wish there was a little less of it. It's a little much, but I have found that in hand it's not nearly as glaring to me as a lot of stock photos made it show. And part of that, honestly, is just you're getting to play with a fun new figure. It's a very nice looking Megatron sculpt. The tank is fun, and I just think once you're actually messing with it, you're more interested in messing with it than the paint. And it looks like it's just kind of tampoed on. You may be able to just get some alcohol and rub that off. But yeah, there is War for Cybertron, Siege Megatron.